You know what's the worst feeling? The feeling of when you find out you were lied to for so long. And like, I'm in this college course for 3.5 years studying economics. And I didn't even know the Austrian School of Economics existed. Like, it was this Roger Ver guy who just spent a couple of years in jail for selling fireworks on eBay is teaching me more economics than like I just learned at 3.5. And I paid for college on my own.
I grew up in a very religious community. Everything I believed in required faith in another person or centralized entity, whether it's a bank or the rabbi or my parents. And everything I did and everything I wanted to contribute to felt like I was contributing to centralization. This technology, you can contribute with all these other people and you could like all come together. We're all now working together for this common good, and we don't even know each other. We don't even know each other's names. We were all using different, I was Yankee, we weren't even using different like, because I was the only American in Bitcoin at the time. Satoshi was Japanese, so I became Yankee. So you know, like he cornered that. The Bitcoiners, the couple hundred of us at the time, we were all in the Bitcoin forums that Satoshi had set up. And no one was reading it, and there was just a couple of dozen people like talking about this thing, developing this code, and the only software that existed at the time. There were no wallets, there were no exchanges. Bitcoin was free. You go to bitcoinfaucet.com and you pasted your address, and the website would send you like 1,000 Bitcoin for free just because you were testing the network. And at the time, even convincing people to come into the chat room, download the software. What is the software? What the hell is this thing that I'm downloading? Like, is it a virus? So I'm like, wait, so my computer is maintaining the ledger of other people doing the transactions, and those other people are also maintaining my ledger? So it's like, if me and a bunch of other people decide to like freeze, we couldn't do it because you need a majority of everyone involved. If everyone in this group was running our own version of Bitcoin, you would need 51% of us to agree to freeze even one of us as account. Like, I was like, wait a minute. No one can freeze the transactions. No one can reverse them. And it fully clicked with me. Back then, you could start a Bitcoin exchange. You could do anything in Bitcoin or crypto without worrying about any regulations. Nowadays, the first thing you do, whether it's a token project or a crypto, anything, you have to worry about regulations and stuff like that. But back then, it was just software. You could do anything you want without worrying about it. But then in June 2013, there was a whole IRS guidance, and that changed everything. We didn't have those licenses that we needed to have in all 50 states. So sadly, we shut down BitInstant, and 6 months later, I got arrested for aiding and abetting the operation of an unlicensed money transmitting business. And then I ended up serving 2 years in prison.
First night in prison is probably the worst night of your life. My first day in prison, there was this guy, he would come over and he said like, if someone puts a Snickers bar in your pillow, don't eat it. And I thought he put the Snickers bar on my pillow, so I ate it. And it turns out it wasn't, I don't think it was him. But I think he had someone in on the joke, so I don't know, nothing ever happened. I ran that place.
And Bitcoin, during those 2 years, Bitcoin went through its first bear market, and that was the longest bear market, and that was the survival bear market. Out of that bear market, we got what now we see as crypto. But that bear market was a long washout. And it was to a point where like myself and a lot of people not gave up, but kind of like went back to their jobs. We had like there was a running YouTube video at the time that like the Bitcoin CEO went back to work at McDonald's and stuff like that. Like all those memes that you see today originated back then. Like they're not new memes.
Welcome everyone to the Naples Bitcoin Blockchain Meetup Group. Our mission here is to accelerate the peaceful transition to a Bitcoin economy, and we do that through education, building community, and technical assistance. So we're here today with our special guest, Charlie Shrem, and I'm just going to let Charlie introduce himself, and I'll be quiet. Thank you, Charlie, for being here.
In fact, I love these meetups. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys for coming in and coming to these meetups and even doing, being interested, because we talk about like the smooth transition to like a Bitcoin economy. If we look at Bitcoin economy as like a Bitcoin community and like the people, this is that community. And what brings us together is, and what's brought us together for, since I've been involved in Bitcoin since the end of 2010, is that same kind of like common understanding and common goal that we all see like something's wrong with different parts of the world or different parts of the industry, whether it's the financial world or whatever it is. And we saw Bitcoin or crypto or blockchain technology as something really important. But give a little bit about myself. So late 2010, kind of the last days of Satoshi, is when I got involved. The Bitcoin world was really just chat rooms and forums. There was one forum, forum.bitcoin.org, and there was and that was the only place in the whole world that you could know anything about Bitcoin. It wasn't like you Google Bitcoin today and you see thousands and thousands of articles and different things. And this was one place. The Bitcoiners, the couple hundred of us at the time, we were all in the Bitcoin forums that Satoshi had set up. And the other place that we hung out was the Bitcoin chat rooms on IRC, your Bitcoin developer channel, and you had like a mailing list that was sent out for developers. But Bitcoin was very like a nerdy internet type of online thing. There were no meetups yet. There was no one doing even in person physically. No one had even like really proposed it yet. And so I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I was in college at the time, and I was hanging out in like another chat room, and someone had said, and I was helping some we were talking earlier, back then, if you guys remember, the world of finance, this was kind of the time of Occupy Wall Street. This was 2008, 2009, 2010. It was the great financial crisis. No one went to jail for it. It was kind of crazy. And the financial world was very different. It wasn't as transparent as it is now. You couldn't really send payments to people. It was very cumbersome. It was only PayPal, I think, was the only one that we could all use. And I was helping a charity set up PayPal, and PayPal came out one day and they're like, this charity's not real, and they froze all their money. And this charity was buying like prosthetic legs for like war victims. So imagine like telling a guy who you told, hey, you're getting a new arm next week, that he can't get a new arm anymore because PayPal froze that transaction. And that's kind of the world that I was growing up in. You had the Occupy Wall Street, and I was studying a degree in finance, and I'm being told that my degree is worthless, finance is over, and I was just very pissed off at the world at the time. It was like my parents were losing their house, in Brooklyn because of the financial crisis. So there was a lot of that negativity coming out of that. And when I first understood Bitcoin, someone came into the chat room and said, Charlie, you gotta check out this Bitcoin thing that I just saw in this other IRC network on Freenode, and that's where all the hackers and kind of nerds were hanging out at the time. And I guess that's kind of what we all became. And someone explained to me that, and I went into this chat room and I saw Bitcoin, and at the time it was just like a white paper, and no one was reading it, and there was just a couple of dozen people like talking about this thing, developing this code, and the only software that existed at the time. There were no wallets, there were no exchanges. Bitcoin was free. You go to bitcoinfaucet.com and you pasted your address, and the website would send you like 1,000 Bitcoin for free just because you were testing the network. And at the time, even convincing people to come into the chat room, download the software. What is the software? What the hell is this thing that I'm downloading? Like, is it a virus? Remember back then, like these were the days of like adware. Remember that software? You had spyware on our computer every other day. Like convincing people to download another one. Like I didn't even know if it had spyware on it in the beginning at all. So I downloaded it. And this was the first Bitcoin software that when you downloaded it, remember you needed to download it. There was no web application at the time for crypto. There was no MetaMask or wallet that made it easier, even app on the phone. Apple didn't allow apps for Bitcoin for many years. But so I was like, this thing is a joke. Like, I don't understand what Bitcoin was. And someone was like, no. And this was like really when it hit me. Was like, Charlie, you know how like PayPal froze your money? And I was like, yeah. It's like, there's one database. Everyone in PayPal who has an account has an entry in that database. And PayPal and the overlords at PayPal, they control that database. So they were able to go to your transaction and freeze it and like pause it and like freeze. And I said, imagine with Bitcoin is that software that you download when you have your computer open. And these were the days when you had to actually keep your laptop open, running the software. Because if it wasn't running, then you weren't earning Bitcoin. And it's like, if you operate this software, your computer, there's a file on your computer, and that's getting a little bit bigger every second. And what that file is that's getting a little bit bigger every second is doing is it's keeping the transactions of all these other people, you know, on here. And so I'm like, wait, so my computer is maintaining the ledger of other people doing the transactions, and those other people are also maintaining my ledger. So it's like, if me and a bunch of other people decide to like freeze, we couldn't do it because you need a majority of everyone involved. If everyone in this group was running our own version of Bitcoin, you would need 51% of us to agree to freeze even one of us' account. Like, I was like, wait a minute. No one can freeze the transactions. No one can reverse them. And it fully clicked with me. And at that point, it really was like a complete life-changing moment for me. Because when I fully understood what this can mean for software, it changed everything, because the internet for me and finance and everything that I had understood in the world was centralized. Everything that I believed in, I grew up in a very religious community. Everything I believed in required faith in another person or centralized entity, whether it's a bank or the rabbi or my parents, and everything I did and everything I wanted to contribute to felt like I was contributing to centralization. This technology, to me, was like, whoa, you can contribute with all these other people, and you could like all come together. And it kind of like, all of us were just in a chat room, and now we have this software, and we're all now working together for this common good, and we don't even know each other. We don't even know each other's names. We were all using different, I was Yankee. We weren't even using different, like, because I was the only American in Bitcoin at the time. Satoshi was Japanese, so I became Yankee. So he cornered that. So it was like all of us were just like doing this thing, and it really became such like a community of like, we're all working together for this common goal. And this was the thing. We all had and Bitcoin wasn't worth much at the time, so it was mostly like stake in ourselves and our like family, in our friends and our families not thinking that we're jokes. That's kind of like what we had at stake at the time. Like at the time, if Bitcoin failed, none of us were really buying it. And that was a big thing. But up until this moment, even these times that I'm talking to you about, these are the times when Vitalik Buterin was writing for Bitcoin Magazine. And Bitcoin Magazine was just a website and actually printed a magazine. And my ad was on the back page of the first 3 issues of Bitcoin Magazine, BitInstant. But people weren't even buying Bitcoin because it wasn't worth much. We just focus on like getting people to use it as a software. So I was running like an e-commerce startup at the time called dailycheckout.com. I was paying my way through college, running this e-commerce site that sold like just cheap stuff on the internet at a time when the internet was like early days where you can still sell stuff, have an e-commerce site. So I was doing a deal a day. It was a lot of fun, but I was really like hanging out in the Bitcoin IRC chat rooms and the Bitcoin forums, and I just loved talking about Bitcoin. I was learning about economics, and I was like studying in school for finance, and I was like, this whole community, like, this is the future. This is the solution to Occupy Wall Street. Like this, we're gonna literally like, we're not gonna like end the Fed. We're gonna like transcend the Fed. We're gonna create a better system, and we're gonna slowly, like missionaries. Like I was like so happy because I felt I was gonna start my own religion. Like screw that other religion. Like I was gonna do my own, and I just totally jumped in with my own feet to a point where like like Bitcoin felt so strong for me because it was the first time the community I was a part of a community that really like accepted me and wanted to like grow this thing together. But I had an idea, and I was like, we need to make getting Bitcoin easier and simpler. We need to make it really, really, really easy for people. And this was now I'm going to say about May 2011. So at this point, about 6 months into it, Bitcoin was starting to get some steam. You were seeing Bitcoin being written about on places like SourceForge. It was Hacker News. There were some early like Gawker, Gizmodo, some early like tech blogs. Ars Technica started writing about Bitcoin in the same equivalent of like a cool little like nascent technology and stuff like that. So Bitcoin was starting to gather some steam, and it started to be seen as like this cool technology, but it was still like this like downloadable software to run this ledger system. And but also it got huge in libertarian circles, and we were like traveling to the Porcupine Festival, which is this large camp out, 5,000 libertarians living in New Hampshire, and they just fell in love with Bitcoin. And Roger Ver, Eric Voorhees, they all came with me because they were all working with me in my company, and we all lived together for a week, and we started like giving away Bitcoin to people, and like people really fell in love with it, and like the idea, like physical spending it, like downloading the wallets. Like we were walking to Korean grocery stores and like speaking in casinos in China, and really like convincing people, but you still couldn't get it easily. So we started a company called BitInstant. It was one of the earliest Bitcoin exchanges, because back then the only way to buy Bitcoin was there are a couple of different websites that you can deposit your Bitcoin and then sell it to other people, kind of like how Binance works today. And you'd have to like, Mt. Gox was the largest and only one at the time. But I felt that people needed to be able to buy Bitcoin easier, to get in their own wallet, like an easier way. So we started this company. We made it really easy for like 1 million people to get Bitcoin, and it was beautiful. Like at one point we had deal with like all the MoneyGram, Western Unions, Walmart, CVS, Duane Reade's all over America, like 1 million locations. So at one point we had like every 30 seconds someone was going into a physical location buying Bitcoin. It was beautiful. Like these were my like future like community members. Like we were starting a whole new religion here, and we were doing millions of dollars a month in transactions, and I was speaking all over the world. My friends had started a Bitcoin nightclub in New York City. It was the first bar in the whole world to accept Bitcoin. Courtney was there. She was the first waitress to ever do the Bitcoin transaction. This was like 2013, right? And we were like, people were traveling from all over just to see a physical in-person transaction. I was doing like crazy media articles and everything. And then I came home from a Bitcoin conference in Amsterdam, and I got arrested. And at this point, the Bitcoin community from 2010 to 2013, this was kind of like pre-Ethereum, pre-smart contracts. The Bitcoin community was being very tug-of-war, push-pulled between the anarchist libertarian roots and like the new Silicon Valley wave that wanted to start to use Bitcoin and the technology to like do cool things with. And I'll leave it at that. Nowadays, the do cool things with is libertarian, anarchist, software-related things. Like that community has come back together, but at the time there was a huge tug-of-war between like libertarians who didn't want to regulate and the new wave who did. And I was kind of like caught in that middle. I was like a 22-year-old kid. And again, now the communities are both together. The libertarians and stuff realize that Bitcoin is a tool to bring all their voters together. And it's actually the best thing together, because now we see, you know, Trump was just at the Bitcoin conference, and you're seeing the other side be able to, you know, and the Bitcoin and crypto super PACs have been the largest political action committees to raise. Like they raised like $700 million. But going back to I got arrested, up until this point, the government had not come out and said anything about Bitcoin. Bitcoin was encrypted. No one was even calling it crypto, or blockchain technology wasn't even a word. But it was like we were under the radar. Not one government entity, federally, state, had said anything. Like it was all educational level. It was not seen as a threat. The only thing that was happening is we were all getting our bank accounts shut down constantly. But that's happening nowadays too in Bitcoin. So I got arrested, and 6 months before I got arrested, the government came out, federal government, and this was like a big thing in Bitcoin, that all Bitcoin companies now are considered like money transmitters. And it was the first time that we saw industry as like, back then you could start a Bitcoin exchange, you could do anything in Bitcoin or crypto without worrying about any regulations. Nowadays, the first thing you do, whether it's a token project or a crypto, anything, or Bitcoin, or you could, a Bitcoin ATM company or anything, you have to worry about regulations and stuff like that. But back then, it was just software. You can do anything you want without worrying about it. But then in June 2013, there was a whole IRS guidance, and that changed everything. We didn't have those licenses that we needed to have in all 50 states. So sadly, we shut down BitInstant, and 6 months later, I got arrested for aiding and abetting the operation of an unlicensed money transmitting business. And then I ended up serving 2 years in prison. And Bitcoin, during those 2 years, Bitcoin went through its first bear market, and that was the longest bear market, and that was the survival bear market. Out of that bear market, we got what now we see as crypto. But that bear market was a long washout. And it was to a point where like myself and a lot of people not gave up, but kind of like went back to their jobs. We had like there was a running YouTube video at the time that like the Bitcoin CEO went back to work at McDonald's and stuff like that. Like all those memes that you see today originated back then. Like they're not new memes. They're just newer. But like we were going to, we joke, like now it's different because now Bitcoin and crypto is an industry where you can like go to college for it, you can get a degree in it. But it's like every early Bitcoin executive, or if you worked at any crypto company back then, you came from a different industry. So we had a joke, it's like the bear market comes, you can go back to your old job. Anyways, as you guys know, the crypto industry has been flourishing since then. It's grown a lot. When I got out of prison, the community really embraced me back. I ended up starting a couple of companies myself, invested in a couple more. I've run a few different wallets, run a few different companies too. And then 3 years ago, I started my VC fund, brought a lot of my friends together. We raised some money. We have a great team of like 10 of us. We find great companies to invest in. Click our portfolio. And this is what's interesting is that I tell people, it's like, scroll down if you can. Out of these companies, out of all my companies, only, just so you can see, only 4 of them have a token. A lot of people think crypto is all about the token. It's not. And we're crypto VCs, we're investors, like we're building technologies, video game engines, financial technology companies. We're doing Bitcoin L2s, 30,000 person strong layer 2 job like LinkedIn for Web3. So all your work history, your degrees, everything that you're doing can be in a wallet that can follow you along. So when you apply for work, your work applies for you instead. Actually, I should tell them to do that. I mean, these are all different.
I know, it's a great thing. And just completely different, like decentralized hacker pen testing company where you can have hackers in real time trying to hack your company. You're paying them out some sort of crypto. Like there's all these different things. Another one that doesn't have a token. So that's what I've been up to the last couple of years. I've also been writing my book about the early Bitcoin history stuff that I've been telling you about. My wife is a actor, so I live on film sets all around the country, which is a lot of fun. And constantly, I podcast. I'm podcasting. I have the show charlieshrem.com. I've been podcasting for 5 years, 417 episodes in. And each one I've interviewed every founder of every blockchain and every protocol is a friend of mine. I know everyone in the space, and I've had them all on the show. So if you're trying to understand anything, you just look for an episode that I've done about it, and I'm the best teacher. So for that stuff. So, I mean, that's what I kind of leave it off a little bit about me. Yeah. We just had a rare Satch and Virgin Coins. It was a great episode that we just produced. And that episode was a Bitcoin happy hour with George Burke, the creator of Portal. And so I mean, we do the show, and now I have a lot more free time trying to figure out what my next thing is. I'm kind of like debating between joining a company or starting my own thing, or maybe doing another VC fund or larger. I'm kind of like a little bit of a crossroads, but I'm getting comfortable with being uncomfortable again, which is what I had to do in night one in prison. I mean, that was the worst thing. It's like the first night in prison is probably the worst night of your life.
So I told y'all earlier about our October conference. So Charlie's going to speak at the conference, and he's going to be a media partner. So we'll get some of the other speakers that will appear on Charlie's podcast prior to the show leading up to the conference, the symposium. So we appreciate that partnership with you, Charlie. All right, let's. Why don't we open up for questions? I know you guys got questions for Charlie.
Even though I'm not in the contest. Hi, Charlie. How's it going? I'm Colin Stack.
There's an economic theory behind what you just did, where it's the person who's in the group who's the only non-incentivized person for something is the one that will end up doing the work. I swear, it's a real thing. I learned so many economic theories in prison because I was studying this stuff. You read it in the books, but you're watching it in real life, and I'm like, I wrote so much. So what's your question? I'm sorry.
I appreciate the share. That's awesome. That's well put. So, and I'll keep this short. What do you feel about what people did, right, with the 68, we'll just call it 68 and change with our piece, episode 1, right? Some would say the first ever 60 minutes, right, on NFTs and crypto. And then what do you feel about the company that led right after that, the first live streaming music NFT that was done with the Canadian rapper Tory Lanez and backed by Flow Rider, with that live streaming platform to be the first ever publicly traded entity through a SPAC.
What's the company?
Are you familiar with Tory Lanez and Flow Rider? Remember the gentleman that came out?
Yeah.
Went viral?
Yeah.
You remember that project? So it was a fintech play where it was a platform for the music piece, and then the cover art was NFTs. They did the founder of BET, they did Nick Cannon, they did Tory, Flow was behind that. But why do you feel like that company came out, almost hit $1 billion market cap in 6 months, and then in the height of NFTs, where do you feel like that whole
we were almost
lost in
there.
Translation, I guess, right?
We were almost there because it's a good question. It's a good question because we almost hit that like mainstream moment with, and I blame if we had better regulations around crypto, we could have hit it. But what you're talking about is, imagine if like Taylor Swift launched a token that allowed for everyone who owned it to own a piece of her royalties. You'd have 10 million people want to own that token. And so like we almost had it with what you said, but because they couldn't, what's the relationship between the NFT? It's like you're still, it's art collectibles, and it worked, and it's to a point, but we didn't break it. But I think it's like what they did is God's work, like getting normal people involved in crypto. That's what we need. We need to get regular people. You know what it is? People come up to me and it's like, sometimes they'll ask me like, why? And they'll ask me these like very deep questions. And it makes me sad a little bit because there should always be a reason someone falls in love with crypto. And sometimes it's like going to a conference and just meeting a couple of friends and saying, I'm going to start going to conferences. And then that's your thing, or like some art or some NFT. It doesn't need to be a technology thing. It just got to be, because at the root of all that is someone who's following the pillars of Bitcoin. And there's like the ethos, scarcity, 21 million. What did we learn from Satoshi with 21 million? The beauty of it, Satoshi like literally capped the amount of Bitcoin. The number doesn't matter. 21, 26, 37, it doesn't matter, but by capping that idea of like creating finality, absolute scarcity, consistency in life, it's a beautiful thing. It's like goes down to like the Fibonacci sequence and like physics and spirituality. And so like, yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
I mean, this doesn't exist in nature in a sense, right? Because
doesn't.
platinum, all these different elements can be created by stars, and they're out in the universe. They're, you know, on an asteroid somewhere. So even those things, right, are not absolutely scarce. But then you have a creation by a human who created this concept and idea of a globally decentralized money for everybody that is absolutely scarce, right? No government, no other entity can print and inflate the supply and steal your purchasing power away from you to fund a war or to send apparently $300 million to the Taliban, which is what I just found out today. Yeah. We've been giving them grants of 300 mil, you know, about 300, something crazy, something absolutely absurd, right? But if that was you who sent $5 by accident to somebody that was affiliated with somebody, you'd be in prison, like what they did to Charlie, right? But they can just waste $300 million or whatever of taxpayer money, send it to the Taliban, send it to this terrorist, yet, you know, they got to do all this other stuff to make sure you're not.
It's about accountability. It's about accountability. All of us in a room 15 years ago, we wouldn't even be financially literate. Like the world, the average American citizen didn't understand this concept that the government's printing money and people didn't really, that idea wasn't even fathomable. This is because of Bitcoin.
There's a reason you don't learn Austrian economics when you go to school. You learn about, you know, Keynesian economics, and you learn about maybe the Chicago School of Economics, which, you know, allows you to have more free market principles, yet except when it comes to the money, right? The money, which is the most basic good in the market, is still controlled like any other communist good. It's centrally planned. What's the Fed going to do? Are they going to raise rates? Are they going to lower rates? They're acting too soon. They're not acting fast enough. The labor market's... I mean, any other good society, we realize that communism doesn't work to control that, to control and to plan, because it's impossible to know what everybody's thinking at the same time, right? There's no way a central board could understand everything. But for the most basic good in society, the most basic thing that everybody needs to use to communicate to each other, to communicate signals to the market, money itself, is controlled in a communist, socialist way by just a group of random people who just decide, you know, what's going to happen. What's the interest rate, right? You know, the price of money. They centrally coordinate and control that key aspect, right?
Yeah. All right. Who else has questions for Charlie? Go for it.
How you doing, Charlie? I've been a counterparty since the Bitcoin burn. My question is, I like to call Bitcoin a store of security, which gives it value. The reason Bitcoin is valuable because it gives you access to the most secure digital network on Earth. Do you believe Bitcoin is a store of value due to its security? And do you believe nation states will trade bonds, currencies, oil on Bitcoin one day? And additionally, are you concerned about the transaction fees supporting the security of the network in the future?
Yeah, it's over time, I think for sure.
Yeah,
no.
Questions. I think
Bitcoin as a store as a store of security is a beautiful way to put it. Bitcoin as like a store, you're being part of a network. When you own a piece of it, you have a right to transact on this network. And as we've seen, this network has grown toward, like nation states all know about it, trade it. Like if you owned a nation state of debt now, and you told them, hey, I had $1 million in Bitcoin, they take it. Like if you own the Bermudan government $1 million for some reason, you need to settle a debt. Like tell me where anywhere in the world now someone wouldn't take Bitcoin to settle a debt. Like that's a crazy thing to think about. 15 years ago, 13 years ago, like I could not even fathom that. Like I can't go anywhere. So yes, it's happening. It's a store of energy and the value of energy, the cost, because miners are always constantly trying to find the cheapest energy anywhere. So it's kind of like a beautiful battery, or like a unit of energy currency. Transaction fees are interesting because we see them get the issues with transaction fees get worse, and then they get better over time. It just forces companies to innovate and build out second layer type things and try to work out different programs to make Bitcoin easier. Like at the end of the day, we could develop Bitcoin apps right now that make it really easy to transact over, like a Lightning Network or a Bitcoin L2 or something like that. We just have to develop those applications for it. Like transaction fees can go away. Exchanges can start batching, doing things better. We could easily innovate away transaction fees, and we have been.
I understand that. I mean, more reference to transaction fees. Obviously, Bitcoin dwindles, so it needs the price to go up to support the miners. So, do you think the transaction fees in the future will be high enough to support this?
100%, 100%. We're so early in this experiment. I think it's like not until like 2035, the year 2150 until like all Bitcoin or 99% of Bitcoin are mined, and then I think it's like I forget the year 2035 is when a certain threshold is hit as well. So we have a long time. And what you could see, there's a lot of different game theory behind it. What you could see is like most transactions are free, but there's just so many, it takes a certain time, and then people will pay for like faster ones, and there'll be different like lanes where like miners will process a certain amount of free ones all the time, and then a certain amount of pay ones. Like there's different innovations for this to make it happen. And yeah, the cool thing is, it's like, if you're asking me that question now, that means we're already like, I can't believe we're so early in the experiment that we shouldn't even have to worry about that for like another 50 years.
Yeah, but I mean, to your question, if you look at fees from the start to today, I mean, you can see the fees are scaling up. I mean, there's been blocks where there's like more than a Bitcoin as a fee in that block, right? So it's like, that's substantial, right? And if you model that out over time, I mean, there's going to be substantial, fee opportunity there, right?
So is that what the second layer is, like counterparty, runes?
Counterparty is interesting. So counterparty, you bring that up. It's basically colored coins, but you're still on the Bitcoin blockchain. And the idea is like if all Bitcoin are the same, if you can start to, it's like how you if you're looking for a leak, you throw like a dye down your pipe to find where the color comes out. You can color coins to make them, you can make these coins that are purple are, different values and other things. It was a great idea. And it's funny because I was talking to Craig Sellers today, the founder of Counterparty, who's working on this whole decentralized digital identity thing on top of Bitcoin. Super cool. But if the idea is not just to make transaction fees lower, is to be able to transact faster. And a Bitcoin block is only 10 minutes long on average or whatever it is. So if you say to yourself, I want the security of Bitcoin, I want that 10-minute block, but in the interim, I don't need that security until the block comes. There are companies that are building out like second layers that kind of like checkpoint the Bitcoin blockchain. So those are like hard coded, but in the meantime, they're soft coded. It's like, imagine if you told someone to like etch something in stone, but it takes them an hour to do it. But in the meantime, they can write with marker on the spot. That marker is going to go away, but it's temporary. But you just need, it's like a document that needs to be notarized. It's signed, but it's not notarized yet. There's some security in having a signed document, but there's even more having, so it's like there's ultimate security on the Bitcoin blockchain, but you can have these like non-as secure chains running a little bit faster. And that's the idea. As long as you're telling people though. The bullshit ones are like, yeah, we're Bitcoin layer 2, but you're actually working on my chain, and then their bullshit chain.
There's trade-offs, right?
There's trade-offs.
You go to Starbucks, me as the person selling you the coffee doesn't necessarily, I don't need to like have it published on the main chain, like, for all of human history, right? Those little smaller transactions, and it's no big deal, right? But if we're transacting for a house or a car or something much larger, then yeah, we'll pay the fee to get in, and we'll wait 10 minutes, right?
Like a great example. Like people think like, oh, you wouldn't wait 10 minutes. Like no, it's the running joke is like I used to sell like physical things for Bitcoin, and I had some old memorabilia, and I would meet people at like Bitcoin conferences and sell this stuff, and came out to like $50,000 or whatever it is. You're sitting with a random guy at a Bitcoin conference. There's a good chance that guy knows how to double spend. It's not that hard. Back then it wasn't a lot, and now it's harder. It's very expensive to do it. I think there's a website. There was a website. There still is. It's called 51percentattack.org. And it tells you the cost to double spend on any blockchain at any given time. So is it just the numbers? It's like Google like 51% attack data, like website, and it's cool visual because you'd see how all those other chains are actually. It's only costs like $1,000 a minute to mine and double spend, where Bitcoin, it would cost like $1 million a second to do it. So it's not that it's impossible. Like anyone who says Bitcoin is impossible to do, no, it's just that Bitcoin made it where it costs so much money to break Bitcoin that if you're going to spend all that money to break Bitcoin, what's the incentive? We'd always joke that the only person that would really, like North Korea, they'd want to like kill Bitcoin, but then like wouldn't they just want to buy Bitcoin in the end? Like there's no one in the world, maybe aliens, like who would want to kill Bitcoin?
Isn't there also the factor that if you wanted to attack Bitcoin, you'd need to have 51% of the voting power, and to be able to acquire that many servers would drive the price up of each server also. So
yes, and it needs to be real time. It's like the 51% attack is not like a one-time thing. You need to be. It's like if the Bitcoin train is running, your train needs to catch up and get ahead and go like backwards it's too expensive to do it.
Okay, so I got a question. You talk about like using Bitcoin at some point to like process transactions for like, assets. But wouldn't that finite quality of Bitcoin like not work over time? Because like that was the issue with like mercantilism, right?
Yeah.
We were trying to like grow a global economy with like a finite amount of gold. Wouldn't we run into similar problems with Bitcoin? Or if assets are priced in Bitcoin and Bitcoin is going up because of like the collectible aspect of it, like that pushes down asset prices. So then like you're basically starting a deflationary cycle. So like wouldn't like
the natural state of things in an economy over time is deflation, because things get easier, cheaper, technology improves, right? So, more population growth on the planet, there's more customers, more people, there's more things. Yeah, population is growing over time, right? There are, before you might charge, if you're a producer of eggs or whatever, for an example, your cost of things over time is going to go down. You're going to get more efficient at packaging. You're going to get more efficient at production. You're going to get more efficient at making, little things that you need if you're building efficiency gains over time. That's just technology, right? Things get more efficient, which naturally should mean that you can sell more goods for a cheaper price, right? And you can still increase your profit margins even by doing that, right? But if the costs of these things are going down over time, you don't necessarily need more, Bitcoin per se, right? So this was a thing that Friedrich Hayek, who's an Austrian economist, he talked about this, right? There's really two types of deflation. The one type of deflation is like this idea, this concept of a deflationary spiral, right? And it has to do with the government printing more money, and then you have deflation, which is bad. But if deflation is occurring naturally, based on just free market economics, that's the different aspect of it, that is not detrimental, because the cost of things are going down for the average consumer. They might be making a little bit less money over time, but also their cost of it, the cost of housing, the cost of all of these different. Right now, people store all of their value in houses, which makes it so ridiculous that nobody can buy a house anymore. It's just like crazy. Like why is this happening? Well, because people are using a house as a store of value, because you can't store your value in money anymore, right? So it creates all these price problems in the economy, right? The cost of eggs and all these things that people need on a daily basis is going up, which is crazy, right? It should be going down, right? Why are the costs of these things not going down over time? Because we're so much more efficient at producing them. So it just doesn't make sense, right? Well, the reason is because they are printing money out of thin air, and they are basically inflating away your purchasing power, stealing your purchasing power from you, right? So you're running the same speed, and you're getting less and less. It's the opposite. You should be running the same speed, and you're getting more for a cheaper price, right? So in and of itself, deflation is not a problem. I mean, these are very deep little rabbit holes. And little
That's the key. The key from day one is protecting your purchase power. From day one, if you've owned Bitcoin, if you're earning money, money's coming in, money has to go out. Rent, mortgage, food, everything like that. If the money coming in is the same, and the money going out is constantly going up, then something's wrong there. And with Bitcoin, the idea was to protect that. But I want to answer the first part of your question about there's enough Bitcoin, there's more Bitcoin than there are stars in the universe, because even though there's 21 million, they're divisible by 8 decimal points. So it's really 21 to the 8th power, and there's enough.
And it actually can be even more divisible,
Can
right?
be more.
Yeah, you can have 10 decimal points.
Software.
Yeah.
Right now, it just shows 100 million subunits. So each Bitcoin has 100 million what we call sats.
So you're not taking away when you're not adding more, but they're just more divisible. So as the value continues to go up, they can be divided and divided and divided between more and more people.
This was a problem for gold because it was very hard to subdivide gold.
It's not divisible, yeah.
It's hard to assay it. It's hard to verify it.
Money because it's not divisible.
I mean, you can do it. It's just more difficult, right? It ended up being prone to centralization. And what did they do to issue to subdivide gold? They issued pieces of paper off of gold. That's how they subdivided.
Like what if someone invented the time dollar? The time dollar is, as soon as you get paid that dollar, the purchasing power of that dollar is frozen in time.
The forever stamp.
The forever stamp. You know what the answer is? It's Bitcoin. That's what Bitcoin is. It's the forever stamp. It's the digital frozen dollar.
So now, okay, that kind of brings me to another aspect of like the store of value. Like, Bitcoin is very volatile. Like, and that to me doesn't represent a good store of value because it's hard to plan time-specific events because you don't know what the value is going to be when you actually need the liquidity. So then, like, how do we account for that, or how do we like adjust our financial, I guess, like
time? The answer is time, unfortunately, because like I'm a member of like some blog where they promote like this stock thing where, you know, for the past 100 years, stocks, you know, even if you could have 10 years of negative stock growth, you can have 10 years of positive, but because they have 100 years of stock data, they know the average is 7%. We don't have enough Bitcoin data, but over the last 13 years of trading, we have some data to know that if you just hold on to Bitcoin year over year over year over year, every 5 years, every 10 years, you're still up year over year.
We're still in price discovery.
We're still in price discovery mode.
What you guys are learning today, the majority of people don't know yet.
Yeah, this is all early.
This is why you have the advantage here. I mean, we're still very early. I've talked a lot about this here, about the S-curve of adoption, right? We're still very early on that S-curve of adoption, right? So, you know, even if you compare it to a stock, similar to like Amazon, right? Amazon went from like $4 or like $6 to like $100, back down to like $5, and it was there for a while in the financial crisis, right? And now it's thousands and thousands of dollars. So we're in a price discovery phase, and that's where we're at until more people are onboarded and learn. But the fundamentals don't change. We understand the fundamentals, right?
Right, as a way to conduct commerce, it's just
I would say
it's great.
Bitcoin is a long-term
something that you're going to put away and forget about. Then it's an investment. But when it comes to spending it in commerce, without involving a stable coin that somebody can transact right out of right now, and then you've got trading fees, which are okay because there are fees when you're transacting, Visa, MasterCard, etc. But you're absolutely right. That's the Achilles heel of Bitcoin becoming a currency, is that it can't be transacted in a way where the merchant knows what they're going to end up with at the end of the day without transacting through a stable coin.
That's only true in the United States with the U.S. dollar.
I mean, most people in a lot of other countries.
We're thinking too American.
99% of the time, every single year forever.
Still changing in value, but not as quickly as their currency.
So I mean, short-term savings, not a good idea in my opinion. Long-term savings, long-term piggy bank, absolutely right. Bitcoin is the best performing asset in all of human history.
Well, that's what's being done too. Is there's projects you guys are probably familiar with where you take a stable coin, you attach it to an NFT, it's being done in oil and gas, it's being done in real estate. Fractionalizing the NFT is already being done. So to answer the last question the gentleman had, you can absolutely do that, right? So you can absolutely attach it to a stable coin, create the project, build the utility of the roadmap, create the community, all the different resources and tools that you need, and obviously put that out into the marketplace. So, you know, if you wanted to take your business product or service and attach it to a stable coin and then give it a vehicle, you know, that'd be one way that's already working.
The fractionalized trading of assets is the greatest thing that's come out of this, because you can put anything into it and trade it, and that's the greatest thing. Before this, you couldn't buy but one share of a stock. Now, Robinhood, whatever, I don't trade there, but being able to buy fraction, and a lot of people she was saying, oh, my friends don't understand, you can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. That's the really amazing thing. Fractionalize any asset There you go. That's what it is.
That's what the technology gave us. It's like you just had Bitcoin and people just figured out like, hey, this technology is so great. Why don't you start doing different things with it? And you're right. The idea of smart contracts and being able to fractionalize and tokenize everything, that bare asset being digital, I mean, it's a killer app. It's all the killer app. Bitcoin doesn't, we don't, it's like, it's not an all or nothing game. It's not like Bitcoin needs to be the it or nothing. Even if Bitcoin gets a couple of percentage points of like, you know, global asset allocation in the next couple of years, that's success. It's now, people know it's an option. People know, all the world governments now know that their citizens have an opt-out. If the governments start to become reckless, and not America, forget America for a second, all those other places where they have the smaller governments that have a lot more, like they're doing crazy things all the time, not that ours isn't, but it's like all those people have an opt-out and they're doing it. They've been doing it like in all those countries that have banned Bitcoin, buying and selling it, are doing it because their citizens are buying and selling it to get out of their local currency. If people don't want your local shit, they're going to buy and sell to get out into it. So that's what it's given us. We never had that before. What would you do? You'd have to buy gold. People wouldn't let you leave. They'd put you on house arrest. So it's become like a leverage thing. It's become like, Bitcoin may not become the only asset in everyone's portfolio, but it'll become a asset in everyone's portfolio. And that to me is success.
Absolutely. The fact that it's truly decentralized and you have that ability to cross any border with your assets in your brain, right? That's going to incentivize governments to treat their citizens more respectfully, right? Because they're going to drive out their top performers if they're acting tyrannical.
Well, it's the opposite now. We're seeing these countries start to use crypto and golden visas and citizenship as like the opposite. They're trying to get people to come. The world we're going through this inflection point where like population will slow down, and we're gonna, you know, and so we need to be attracting more people and bringing more people in, you know, good qualities. So like all those countries are now offering, if you're a Bitcoiner and you want to come and live here, like Portugal and stuff, if you hold $500,000 worth of Bitcoin now, Portugal gives you free citizenship. So they're trying to attract the people that are smart living in those countries with authoritarian regimes.
Nigeria is a perfect example. I mean, highly intelligent population. We're seeing massive adoption. The government's trying to stop it, and you know, transaction volume just keeps going up. Adoption just keeps going up. There's nothing they can do.
Nigeria is a perfect example because you have brilliant people in the worst run government in the world, probably. So it's like, what do? They realize very quickly, you know, that Bitcoin was really big.
57 billion in volume growth, I mean, of transactions there. So I mean, that is massive, you know, billions and billions of dollars of transaction settlement. And that is growing, right, from year to year to year. Government bans it, volume goes up 80%, right, 100%. I mean, people are just basically saying, fuck you. In China bans mining. Today in China, there are more miners mining than there were before the ban. I know that's hard to wrap your mind around. The most authoritarian communist regime. Yeah. I mean, Bitcoin doesn't give a fuck, right? It's this decentralized technology that anybody can participate in, and even the most authoritarian governments in the world are not going to be able to stop it.
Okay, who else has a question for Charlie?
Yeah.
Over here, go ahead.
So, Alessandro, Charlie, thanks for joining us. So I guess one question, it sounds like you started a bunch of different companies. What are maybe some experiences that you had with the venture community in the past that you hope to do differently as you think about Druid and other investments?
There's a lot of transparency issues when it comes to VCs, when it comes to like what they're investing in, and then what they're like, especially when it comes to like tokens. And that's why I brought up the fact that like we didn't, like a lot of VC funds call themselves venture capital funds, but they're really just trying to like do more short term, like buy this project now, get a token, let it go up, and then we make money. We never really focused on that. We kind of looked at more of like the 5 or 6 year, 7 year strategy. And so if I launched a second fund, I'd probably do the same thing because it's a lot less pressure. It's a lot easier to look towards the future when you don't have like people breathing down your neck to make like profits in year 1 or year 2. So I definitely do that again. Like the early Series A seed funding is the way to go. Like I don't think I could do private equity and liquid token trading. Like for a VC fund, liquid token trading is like the hardest thing. So I was talking to my friend Jake, who started Coin Fund. It's the largest and oldest VC fund in the space, like out of Brooklyn, New York. Jake Bruckman, coinfund.io. They've been around forever. And I was talking to him and I said, same question I asked him. And he said, Charlie, I regret every token I ever sold. Because when I sold a token in a short amount of time, it was because I didn't have like faith in myself as like a long-term investor. And then every time like we hit that 2-year mark where we would start actually selling a token, and that we've sold before that, he's like, I was mad at myself because I was like, I should have trusted myself more and stuff like that. So, and I think if all the venture capitalists and all the investors kind of looked at tokens are changing. Like these washouts that we just saw yesterday and 2 days ago, they're going to continue happening. They've always happened. You're going to see the shit and the crap continue to go away, and only the good left standing. But I really do, like in a year from now, I'll be sitting in this room and call me on it. But I really do think that the concept of the token is going to change, especially with new regulations that will be signaled this year. And I think that the idea of token is going to change, and a token will become more of like a fractionalized bear asset that when you hold it, you get a distribution or a dividend or a revenue share to some business or mortgage or interest rate or something. And now that token will go up in value, but similar like stocks, it'll go up because people will want the future value of it based on some revenue that's coming in. No more speculations like, dude, I work for half these companies. I work for these companies that have tokens, and they literally sent me like, Charlie, how do we make our price go up? And they've been around for 3 years. Like no one knows. It's magic. It's like guesswork. I think we're moving away from that, and I don't think it's going to be something like that in the future.
Thanks. Go ahead. So I know you'd started up BitInstant back in the day with Roger Ver. I was just curious, do you still talk to him, and what's your whole take on everything? Him kind of falling from grace and kind of turning his back on Bitcoin and everything.
I mean, in this moment, he's like living in Spain under house arrest, pending some trial, because we share the same lawyers. I have the best law. I have like this. If you ever, unfortunately, you should never need them. But if you need the most expensive lawyers on the planet to get you out of something, call me. They're gladiators. But no, unfortunately, like I'm young, so I'm learning life as I'm learning, Bitcoin stuff. And I learned you just have friends and people that you can love and be really close to you, and then they just won't be part of your life in the future, and that's totally okay. But Roger was like my father figure to me at one point. He was like my bigger brother. I left my whole community, and I still haven't seen or spoken to my parents in like 10 years. Like I have all my family, friends, and relatives, and I had nothing. I have nothing. I don't have family photos childhood photos of myself. Like when I got into Bitcoin, my family rejected. They rejected that I wasn't religious anymore. They rejected that they didn't like the idea of a decentralized community because I was part of a centralized religious community. They didn't like that Courtney wasn't Jewish and everything. And so there's all these kind of things that kind of came together. So the early Bitcoin community became my family. And Roger was like part of that. And they can do that. He made me read so much libertarian work, like books. Like they would joke that I was the only statist in the room, and they would be like, Charlie the statist, and And it's not my fault. Like, I just didn't know better growing up. And they were all older, you know, and stuff like that. And, but they taught me. But that was the thing is, like, you know what's the worst feeling? The feeling of when you find out you were lied to for so long. And, like, I'm in this college course for 3.5 fucking years studying economics. And I didn't even know the Austrian School of Economics existed.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
Like, it was this Roger Ver guy who just spent a couple of years in jail for selling fireworks on eBay is teaching me more economics than, like, I just learned at 3.5. And I paid for college on my own. Like, I worked for that tuition, so I was angry that I just spent. I could have been partying for those 3 years. So, but yeah, so, like, Roger's, you know, I don't know. I hope he does well. I wish him all the best. But I don't, you know, we were talking earlier on his podcast about pigeonholing yourself, and in religion they pigeonhole themselves to, like, a sword, and if you put a sword on that, you have no way to back out, and you have no way to allow for people to come up with their own kind of, like, ways of, like kind of getting into it. Like, I'm not going to force all of you onto this Bitcoin thing. Like, you'll all figure it out on your own and fall in love with it in your own way. And if you don't, like, there's no stake with me. But it was so crazy how you had, and it was like a completely decentralized community, and it completely changed everything. I don't remember what the question was. I digress. Oh, yeah, pigeonholing. So yeah, a lot of people with Roger, as he ended up falling, I think, for his own, like, what he said he wouldn't do, and he pigeonholed himself with Bitcoin Cash. And I think that is because he really did believe Craig Wright was Satoshi. And so it's like, yeah, imagine if, like, you believe in something, like, that there's no leader, and someone literally comes and says, hey, I'm the leader. Yeah, it's like, that's what it was. And what Craig Wright was doing behind the scenes was he was preaching all anti-Satoshi stuff. He was saying everything was the opposite.
He never even read.
Well, no, and where Satoshi was all about, like, I have no power, I can't come back, I have no say in anything, like, Craig was like complete opposite. Like, everything was just a lie. And so, like, yeah, like, I don't know if he got Roger in, like, a low time. Like, I don't know what happened there, but Roger ended up saying that everyone who fell for Craig Wright ended up admitting that they fell for him. Like, it was a scam. So.
Wow.
All right, we got time for one more question.
Yeah.
One more question.
Want me to fire another one?
Yeah.
Wait, no, let's let Scott's.
We can do it both.
Yeah.
Hey, start us off with the AC.
Start with Scott. Go ahead.
Why'd you eat the Snicker bar the first night in prison?
I was hungry. I don't know. I thought it was a joke. I really did think. So the story he's talking about was my first day in prison. There was this guy who ended up, it was a joke, and that guy made that same joke on, like, every new inmate that came in. And he basically came over, and it wasn't a joke, because if it really happened, it would have been bad. But he would come over and he said, like, if someone puts a Snickers bar in your pillow, don't eat it. And I thought he put the Snickers bar on my pillow, so I ate it. And it turns out it wasn't. I don't think it was him. But I think he had someone in on the joke, so I don't know. Nothing ever happened. I ran that place.
You showed up.
Yeah.
Commissary wins the day.
All right, Colin.
So, serious question. Maybe I know some people here that know what I'm talking about. Maybe some are new to this, but how do you feel that staking and farming has contributed to the ability to hedge your mitigated risk in investing in what is cryptocurrency and assets of NFTs and smart contracts?
I mean, it's all great. I have really nothing bad to say. Like, scams will be scams, yeah.
Yeah, the last part is, what do you feel about nodes and how people leverage nodes to cap raise?
That's an interesting point, like the masternode thing, and then you lock people in for a certain amount of time. Look, it's all about the technology. The problem is I've had a lot of those where they never actually built a blockchain. They were just collecting people and then paying a certain amount of people higher interest than other people, and it was just a Ponzi scheme. Like if there's a scammer using crypto to do some Ponzi or other scam, it's not the technology, it's actually the lack of, they never built any technology. All these scams that have stolen so much money over time, like BitConnect and all these things, is because they promised a technology that was doing something and they lied. There was nothing there. It was a house of cards on the other side. So I love all these things, as long as that they're doing it, as long as that technology is there and they're building it and you control it with your own keys and you can see the software and the company goes away. Does the software still exist? Are they in control of your money or you're in control of your keys? If it's a token that you can keep in your own wallet, like these are all very important questions.
I mean, this is personal responsibility. Is like, you know, the onus is on you. This is a tale as old as time, right? You know, a fool and their money are soon parted. And this, with great freedom comes great responsibility. I mean, that's the core ethos here, right? So not everybody's ready for that message and that thought process, right? It contradicts our current society where I'm a victim and it's everyone else's fault for this or that or the other, and you know, whatever it may be, whatever
the AC was
or whatever.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Have you ever met Richard Hart, and do you think he's a scammer?
I don't know.
Richard Hart?
I don't want his army after me, and this is being videoed, so like, it's like I don't want his army, but you know the answer.
I'll go on the record.
Everyone knows the answer to that. You know. I've been preaching, I don't want to get his army after me now.
Isn't he on the run from like the?
But he's got all these millions of followers that'll annoy him.
It's a it's a religion, right? People
are part
exactly. Of that Ponzi scheme religion that they're going to be a part of it, right? Or whatever.
But I was going to end off saying really quick is like, have you been scammed in crypto?
Have I personally
been scammed? I've been scammed. Like everyone's been scammed in crypto before. Like everyone, and it's how you learn. Someone scammed you. No, not have you scammed. Have you been scammed? Yeah, no. Have you been scammed? We've all lost money. We've all lost money. We've all had money stolen from us. We've all got screwed over in crypto.
Let's go to Bill.
Okay, so before I let you go, Charlie, first of all, we're all going to the Yard House, or some of us are going to the Yard House. Everyone's welcome to join us. The Yard House is just a bar, a restaurant down the street. We can give you directions if you need them. I want to gift you and Court. We have a newer version of the hat that we used for our Bitcoin Day Miami group.
Ooh, this one's nice.
And so, thank you so much for coming. I hope you wear those.
This is so nice.
I wear this hat every single day.
Everyone, you have people literally comment on this hat when Courtney has it.
The soft trucker hat is the way to go.
It's in right now.
It's so
well, I have to give full credit to both the design and the choice of the hat to Jack Fife right there.
Amazing.
He's part of the Bitcoin Day.
What's the color?
California's not all bad.
Do I take this? What's the cool way? With the sticker on or off?
I take it off.
Wasn't there a time when it was
high school?
Yeah, it was. I'm still in those days.
So Colin, who's our winner?
I would say it's the gentleman with the backwards hat over here.
All right.
Well,
yeah.
Thank you.
Can we do a group photo? Can we do a group photo?
We can do a group photo, sure. Yeah. So before we do that, let's just so that you all can mingle and start working your way out. Oh, you want the whole group?
No, I'll turn around and we'll do a selfie. Really quick.
All right. Let me sit down.
I got everyone already.
All right. Let's give Charlie a round of applause.
Thank you.
Guys, if you haven't joined our Discord group, scan that and
we'll leave that up for a few minutes. We do need